afternoon, everybody. I'm Miriam Callaghan, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the new Diversity and Inclusion Frontier event with AsIAm and Irish Jobs. As you all probably know, it's estimated that at least 1 in 65 people in Ireland, they are autistic, yet 85% of people with autism are unemployed or underemployed, which is truly shocking. Well, now IrishJobs.ie and AsIAm, Ireland's National Autism Charity, well, they've come together to champion people and autistic talent in the workplace. Well, in this afternoon's webinar, we'll also be discussing the findings of a joint report called Autism in the Workplace by Irish Jobs and AsIAm. We're going to explore the experiences of autistic people in the workplace and examine how access to unemployment, how it can be improved for autistic people, because that's incredibly important, and that's what today and this afternoon is all about. Well, on today's panel, we have a super panel. We're going to hear from Adam Harris, who many of you will know so well, CEO of AsIAm, Orla Moran, General Manager of IrishJobs.ie, Melissa Mooney, who works as a Customer Experience Executive at Vodafone, Niamh Biddulph, who's an HR intern at Biddulph, and finally, we're going to hear from Naomi Hegarty of Tata Consultancy Services. So welcome to you all. It's going to be a really stimulating hour, and I hope you'll all enjoy it very, very much. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the wonderful Adam Harris, CEO of AsIAm. Good afternoon, Adam.
Good afternoon, Miriam.
Thanks so much for being the organizer along with Jobs.ie. Isn't it true, Adam, that 85% of autistic people being unemployed or underemployed, it's really quite shocking, as I said earlier. What challenges do autistic people face in the workplace, Adam?
There's no doubt that it's shocking, and I think it's nothing less than a crisis, the challenges that autistic people are facing in the world of work. I think what we're seeing at present is the first generation of autistic people diagnosed in large numbers as children, aging out of our school system. And I think one of the problems at times can be that the image people have in their head when they think of autism usually is a child. But of course, those of us who are autistic, we're adults for a lot longer than we are children. And I think at the heart of this, the survey that we've conducted today, we see that perception barrier still very much exists. 56% of autistic people surveyed said that they felt employers still had inaccurate perceptions of autism, which posed barriers to work. And 75% of the autistic people we surveyed said they wouldn't tell their employer that they are on the autism spectrum. I think we know in Ireland when we don't talk about things, that's when a lot of the problems set in. And I think what a lot of employers here today will find quite interesting to find out is that there's definitely a good willingness in this area. There's a real desire to create inclusion, but people don't know how or where to start. And the sorts of barriers autistic people face in the workplace are often very easy to address and are often very small changes that make a big difference. It might be, for example, somebody having an alternative means of interview. You know, interviews are built on building rapport with strangers, going to somewhere unknown and answering abstract questions. Really, what maybe it's better to give a person an opportunity to demonstrate their ability as opposed to communicate it. It might be having a quiet seat in the office as opposed to being in a really busy seating environment. Or maybe COVID-19 are going to present new opportunities for us when we think, for example, of remote working, which is opening up new opportunities for autistic people who may presently have found the idea of having to be in an office environment 5 days a week just too overwhelming and too overstimulating. So there's small barriers, but they're real. And I think one of the key findings here today is that 90% of the people we surveyed believed their autism posed barriers for them in finding employment. So I think it's clear that we need to work in partnership and address this as an urgent social issue as we come into World Autism Month.
And Adam, why have you launched this partnership with Irish Jobs?
Well, I think IrishJobs.ie were a natural fit for us, the country's leading employment platform. And I have to say, I felt enormous pride this morning to see when you go onto IrishJobs.ie that literally autism inclusion is front and center on that platform this morning. I think it's vital that we mainstream this discussion. I think too often in advocacy and disability, we can talk a little bit in an echo chamber or to ourselves. And AsIAm, we believe in working in partnership to address issues. And we believe that working in partnership with Irish Jobs will have an opportunity to work with a broad range of employers to create that understanding and acceptance that is needed. I think that if knowledge is power and working together, we can provide that knowledge and create new opportunities for autistic people in the workplace.
It sounds great. And what do you hope, Adam, to achieve with this partnership with IrishJobs.ie?
So what we hope to achieve is starting a national conversation, and fundamentally what we believe COVID-19 presents is an opportunity for something of a reset. There's a lot of assumptions we would have made about the world of work and workplace practices that I think we would have been really seen as copper fastened 12 months ago, that now we realise maybe aren't that important, from the clothes we wear to where we're sitting when we work, to maybe some of those social norms or grey areas that can be very hard for autistic people to understand, you won't find in the staff handbook. So I think there's an opportunity as we come through this to say, how can we create inclusive workplaces? What I really want to be clear is this isn't a CSR partnership or a charity partnership. This is about matching talent to jobs, and it's a broad range of jobs. I think sometimes when we talk about autism, we talk about very particular industries. We believe that autistic people have the broadest range of skills and opportunities. Some people want to work full-time, some people want to work part-time, some people can only do very specific roles. But we believe working in partnership, we can match autistic talent to suitable jobs.
Well, congratulations to you, Adam. It's a great initiative, and I've known you a long time. You're quite an exceptional person. Let me bring in Orla Moran, General Manager of IrishJobs.ie. Well done to all of you guys, Orla. This is a wonderful initiative. Why did you want to get involved, Orla, in championing autistic talent?
Thanks very much, Miriam, and also thanks very much for agreeing to host our webinar this morning. We know how busy you are. Yeah, I suppose if we start by saying, look, we're really excited in Irish Jobs about beginning this journey with AsIAm, as we've very much long championed inclusive and accessible workplaces. So what we want to do is we want to open the door to opportunity for Ireland's autistic talents. And with our partnership with AsIAm, we're very much committed to setting change and being a force for good in making Ireland's workplaces accessible for autistic talent.
What challenges, I suppose, Orla, do employers face when it comes to recruiting autistic people?
Yeah, so we surveyed our clients on Irish Jobs, from multinationals to Indigenous Irish businesses. And if you consider 1 in 65 people are autistic, yet only 3 in 10 organisations employ or are aware of employing autistic individuals. So I think there's definitely an issue here that needs to be addressed. What's really clear from our reports, and also very striking, is actually the lack of understanding across organisations. So if we consider as well that there's a lot of companies that perceive difficulties in hiring autistic individuals. And many of these difficulties are rooted in their company's lack of understanding of autism, or else they find that their companies are probably quite inflexible when it comes to accommodating autistic people. I suppose what's positive about our report, and what's good to know, is that employers really are looking for support. And 91% of employers said that they were unaware of the supports or the information available in employing autistic individuals. So 16% of those surveyed were unaware of the government supports. And actually what's startling is only 3% have actually availed of these supports, which, when you consider in Ireland, it's such a competitive recruitment landscape, and there's this pool of talent that employers can tap into. So I thought that was a really, really surprising figure. And with this partnership, we hope to change that figure considerably. So I think what we've seen is that with the right supports and with the right educational tools, that workplaces can open the door of opportunity to autistic talent. And we're really excited about beginning a series of masterclasses with AsIAm. So every month we're going to be running a masterclass with AsIAm from April until October. And the first one that's going to kick off is going to be in April. And that's going to be, the topic is recruiting autistic talent. These webinars, these masterclass webinars, are going to be free for employers. So they can sign up, as I said, and they can learn everything from kind of how to write a compelling job description, to how do they promote inclusivity in their workplaces. So it will cover a multitude of topics.
That's so interesting. And I was just going to actually ask you, Orla, you know, what can you and IrishJobs.ie and AsIAm offer to employers via this partnership? Obviously, that's one of the things you will be offering.
Yeah, so what we'll be doing is we'll be keeping our customer base on Irish Jobs up to date on when the masterclasses are going to be happening. I think, though, it's very much up to each organisation and employer to ensure that they do their part and put the relevant people forward in their organisation, whether it be in talent acquisition or recruitment teams, that they register, and they can do that via the AsIAm website. They can register for the workshops there. There's also a copy of our report with AsIAm, which is very detailed. It's available on the IrishJobs.ie website. So there's a lot of information there also for employers. So if you log on to the homepage of Irish Jobs, as Adam mentioned earlier, you'll be able to access the link to the report there. We've worked with many companies on their employer branding in Irish Jobs, and we've seen that it's diversity inclusion has become very prominent of late. But what we'd like to see is that the figure increases on the number of people that actually include autism in their diversity and inclusion policies. I think that will be a win. And I think to say as well that diversity and inclusion matters to candidates. So it's such, as I said, a competitive marketplace. And if you consider Gen Z, for example, they always look at the diversity and inclusion piece for a company when they're considering working for them. So that's another reason for people to work on how they're making their workplaces accessible for autistic talent. And I think if we consider that autism is very much frequently overlooked or misunderstood when we talk about workplace diversity and inclusion, so we very much hope that this partnership will help to educate employers. And maybe if I can finish by saying that out of the organisations that we did survey that do employ autistic individuals, 100% said that they made a really positive contribution to their organisations. So I think that's a good stat for people or organisations listening today to hear, because hopefully too they can realise the same benefit in their own organisations.
That says it all, actually, Orla. And well done to you and everyone at IrishJobs.ie for being part of this incredible partnership. We now move on. Exactly, you were talking about the 100%, praise for autistic people working in companies, and I'm now joined by Melissa Mooney, who works for Vodafone and who is autistic. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Vodafone, Melissa.
Thanks, Miriam, and a big thank you as well to Irish Jobs and to AsIAm for having me on today. But I suppose just for a bit of background, I graduated last year with a degree in politics and languages from UL. And as you just said, I now work at Vodafone as a customer experience executive. And I suppose just on my journey as to how I got there, during my studies, I did a 6-month placement with the Department of Foreign Affairs, where I worked under a development aid program, which was super interesting work. But I suppose it was shortly after that I was lucky enough to be offered an internship opportunity with Vodafone. And that was honestly an incredibly impactful experience for me, just because everyone there was immediately just so eager to have that dialogue with me around accommodations and I suppose around my needs as an autistic person. And it just left such a strong impression with me that I ended up applying for a graduate role and was lucky enough to return to Vodafone as a graduate in September. And I'm loving every minute.
That's brilliant. And listen, what's been your experience, Melissa, of say telling colleagues or employers that you are autistic?
Honestly, I've actually been incredibly fortunate to have had such positive experiences around disclosure, and not just at Vodafone, but at any company I've worked for throughout the years. So I suppose I would say that Vodafone in particular, though, was really kind of went the extra mile and was really proactive about learning about my needs. Actually, it was quite bizarre as a new recruit to have people who were just so far senior to me, in the business, setting aside time, especially to talk to me and like sitting there with their notepad, taking notes. And honestly, I couldn't be prouder to belong to an organization that has that culture, that where even leaders believe they have something to learn from those around them.
That's wonderful. And how do you feel being autistic, Melissa, influences your work as an employee?
Well, I think in Ireland it's fair to say that we do have this culture of extreme modesty, where I suppose we tend to think, like, I suppose, conflate confidence with arrogance or notions, as we like to say. But but I think it's so important to own your strengths, and especially for autistic people, because we're still finding ourselves coming up against these misconceptions of autism as just a bullet point list of all the things you can't do, when actually so much of what I can do and what I do best, I actually put down to being autistic. Like for me, I think I'm loyal, I'm honest, I have great attention to detail, and when I get passionate about a project, I give it 110%. There could be an earthquake happening outside and I wouldn't pay it the least bit of mind, because I'm in a state of absolute 100% focus that nothing could shake. And that is such a great asset to me that I put down to being autistic. But I really think such a big part of ensuring that all autistic people have that same opportunity to thrive in the workplace is just simply empowering autistic people to back themselves and to flip that narrative so that they can see what they can do, as opposed to just the things they supposedly can't do. And I suppose just have confidence in their abilities and know that they deserve to be there.
And what sort of supports, finally, Melissa, what sort of supports made a difference for you in your workplace?
Well, I suppose I was on board in September, so of course I have been working remotely right from the get-go. So it's been a journey, even for myself, just I suppose trying to figure out what works for me at home versus in the office. But honestly, I actually think remote working just in and of itself has made my professional life just so much more accessible. Like, I mean, I commute a grand total of about 5 paces from my bed to my desk each morning. And I suppose a lot of people would take this for granted, I suppose, but for a lot of autistic people, including myself, the commute in the morning can be quite stressful. It can be quite draining. I mean, you're running for the Lewis, you've got people crammed in on top of you in the carriage and like getting in your personal space. You've got this whole wall of noise coming at you from traffic, from the intercom, from conversations happening around you. And by the time you've arrived at the office, you're just incredibly overstimulated, and you've just spent quite needlessly so much energy that you could instead be channeling into your work. So I suppose freeing up that energy has been a real game changer for me, at least. But I suppose in terms of actual like tangible supports, as Adam said, it is incredibly like basic and small things that cost absolutely nothing to my employer and are also incredibly easy to implement that I have. Just really basic things like getting clear, concise, and preferably written instructions from like my manager, etc. And that's really beneficial, not just to me, but to my whole team, because it forces them to like clearly define the task and I suppose the processes and I suppose what we want to achieve with the project. And by having to actually put that down in writing, it gives the team clarity as well. So that's like an example of an accommodation that benefits not just me, but everyone. And it's in everyone's best interest to, I suppose, implement that. But I suppose I also find it hard to listen and take notes at the same time. So I like to ask for written summaries of any information that was given to me during a meeting afterwards, just to compare against my own in case I missed anything. But there's also great recording and transcription functionalities on Microsoft Teams that I get a lot out of. But I mean, even looking at the future of work, you know, we're seeing some companies considering hybrid models, which is great. And I think is actually going to be a net positive for people like me with auditory processing issues, because there will be fewer people in the office at any given time, which will therefore reduce noise and just have a more, I suppose, accessible office space for people who have those issues with background noise. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And I mean, that's just one example of how the modern workplace is evolving to become more accessible, almost unintentionally without realizing it. So I mean, imagine what can be achieved if we actually consciously try to embed neuro-inclusivity into our future as a workplace. So, I mean, personally, I'm just really excited to see what happens.
That's so interesting, the way you said it just accidentally happened. But Melissa, you're incredibly impressive. Honoured to be chatting to you this morning, and well done to Vodafone too. They're very lucky to have you but at least they've been great as well as an employer. I'm going to move on as well now to Niamh Biddulph, who also is autistic. And Niamh, you work for UnPus. Tell us a little bit, Niamh, about what you do at UnPus. Niamh, are you there? Niamh, you might be on mute, maybe. Would that be correct? Shane, do you want to check there? Niamh, are you on mute? No?
No, I'm unmuted.
Oh, great. You're there now. Hi, Niamh. Just to say thanks so much for joining us this morning. Hopefully you were listening to Melissa there. I know you also are autistic and you work for UnPus. Tell me a little bit about your job in UnPus.
Right, thank you for having me on this webinar. And I'm currently working as an HR clerk for UnPus. So mostly my work is revolved around recruitment, and a lot of it is relating to job applications, making sure that everyone is being given a fair process in the application. And as well, when we're working on the recruitment process of any particular roles that people are looking for, especially for a person with autism, if they're looking for specific work, we make sure that or to send them to morning huddle meetings so everyone gets is being shared in all the competitions that were regarding specific job roles. I get a lot of people applying during the Christmas and summer months. So April, November are usually the months that we get very busy with sorting out the job applications. So it is a very inclusive kind of role that I am a part of.
Sounds a great job and role. Listen, what people or support, Niamh, made the biggest difference in helping you get a job?
And the biggest support that I feel has the biggest impact on me is two supports. Firstly is the support of my family, and they have been helping me with making sure I am prepared for the work placement, making sure that I have everything organized for when I need to get ready to start working. The second support for me is through the Trinity College's graduate internship program through TCPID. And I feel that if I didn't learn anything from the work placement through the work placement lectures that I had attended through my college course I had done in the last 2 years, I don't think I would have put myself in a position where I'd be working as an HR for UnPus. And I feel that with those, including the support of the colleagues, they really helped me with taking my time with my work. They offer me assistance when I need it, especially if there's any important parts of the job that need to be done. All of those together actually make me feel like I can actually work as an employee. Like I am treated as an employee. I am not treated as a person with autism, which actually really feels very inclusive.
That's great, Niamh. And Niamh, if employers could only learn one thing or make one change to be more inclusive of autistic people, what should it be?
Well, I think from an employer's perspective, like given that there will be interviews for jobs throughout the years and throughout the next few months, I think if there was a person with autism who was going for an interview, I think it would be good for the employer to give a talk like through a Microsoft Teams or through a Zoom meeting, and just to say that the interview would become enough, but there will be supports there if you need it, and don't be afraid to ask any questions, just so that the person with autism who's looking to work with, say, An Post or A&L or Bank of Ireland, that they actually can feel more relaxed going into the interview. Because I know through some experiences that going to meet the people you're going to work with can be a little bit worrying and it's stressful for some, especially if it means that you need to make it to the meeting or the interview on time, or even if you are trying to take down notes of the work that you need to get done. As Melissa was saying, with the itinerary of the work that you're going to be given, that also helps a person with autism to be more comfortable with the role that they're going to be in for, say, 3 months, 6 months. And then if you're asked to be talking to an employer about your internship, it actually could mean that it might get extended to your internship, or it could mean something better like a permanent part-time, which actually would make the world of difference to a person with autism, especially given the fact that there is a lot of misconceptions regarding this.
And Niamh, if you had to give one piece of advice to another young autistic person who's looking for employment, what would it be?
My key advice to somebody who might be looking to work anywhere in Ireland and are stuck with where to start, I really recommend that you get somebody in your family, or it could be your social worker, or it could be your carer, or it could be somebody in your college that you're getting support from. Be sure to get them to assist you with looking in for work, because with my experience of being in the work placement classes in college, I was able to learn that I'm actually really good with computers. I'm also really good with teamwork. So the morning huddles with my team in the HR actually are very meaningful, especially when it comes to any particular queries that I might have. And also, if it is that you do get a job working anywhere, enjoy every minute of it. You feel that you're going to be enjoying having a morning routine. You're going to enjoy having to talk to your colleagues. You actually get to enjoy doing things that actually might be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So sometimes I take a reflection on my work, like with working from home. I've actually experienced traveling to work, and I've also experiencing working from home currently. And I feel that with both those things, a person with autism should be allowed to choose whether to commute to work or to work from home, or to combine them both, so that it can mean that their work week or work routine can actually make a better difference for keeping them calm and collected. And if you're thinking about working with Post, we have a diversity and inclusion team. It actually can support people with autism with the job process. We've got the HR who are willing to help a person with autism to work. And I think that it would be a really good thing to have more people with autism in the workforce.
Well, look, Niamh, thank you so much for chatting to us this morning. You're incredibly impressive, like Melissa, and well done to An Post as well. They're lucky to have you, but it's great that they're a good employer as well. So thanks so much. Now, listen, it's time to hear from some employers. And one company that's been leading the way, it truly has, in the recruitment of autistic people is Letterkenny-based Tata Consultancy Services, formerly known as Primerica. And I'd really like to welcome Naomi Hegarty, VP of Risk Management. Morning, Naomi, or good afternoon.
Morning, how are you? Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, well done. And you know, you're a great company, as I've heard. What would you say, Naomi, to an employer who wants to do something, maybe even is on this call, wants to do something in this area, but maybe doesn't know where to start, or maybe is just afraid of getting it wrong?
Well, it is about diversity and inclusion, first of all, and we've heard about Vodafone and Post. It's the same in TCS. The culture within the organisation is very, very important. And in terms of, where to start, I would start with site leads for, diversity, inclusion, etc. We have a group called Adapt, and we have two fabulous site leads, Roshan and Catherine, who are very strong champions of the programme. We've built a plan, a vision, or objectives, and a framework that we work towards. It's very important as well, Miriam, to get feedback from our employees to ensure that the programme is inclusive and it's relevant, because we have to change it, and it's an ongoing journey. Initiatives like this must evolve and grow with the needs of our employees, the business, and of course, external factors outside the business. Very important would be to get employees involved. Every employee on our Adapt team, and Adapt is abled and differently abled partnering together. Every employee involved has an emotional connection to the cause. And we've talked about that emotional connection, and we've showed our vulnerabilities within the group, which has actually increased the trust within the team. It's a very, very strong team. But be under no illusion, Miriam, our employees own this. And so the senior leadership team support and help, or HR team support and help, but our employees own this. We have also partnered with organisations in the sector such as AsIAM, and Adam has been a fantastic person to actually help us, and I know he does this throughout Ireland. We've partnered with Irish Wheelchair Association, Employment Response, the HSE, and we get their input into our programme, and they're all willing to help. We've built a lot of awareness across the organisation as well, especially for people managers and teams that actually support employees. So if you think about our HR team, our facilities team, or IT support team, so it's really important that they understand and that we build awareness there, and then focus on specific topics like training, being inclusive, having, reviewing your recruitment and your onboarding, and take one step at a time. And it's okay to get it wrong.
We all do. And listen, as an employer, what support or change do you think is needed, Naomi, in your view, to, I suppose, turn the dial on autism employment?
Well, I would start to say, Miriam, that this initiative requires continuous focus. It is a journey. Like I heard from Fiona Ferris on LinkedIn last night, we need to move from autism awareness to autism acceptance, and that is very important. One thing I learned from Adam when he came to Letterkenny to our company really was, he said, and he mentioned it earlier, we sometimes think of children when we think of autism, but there's a lifelong journey there that we have to be mindful of and we have to be supportive of. So in terms of, our HR and recruitment team, we've had 3 individuals, Alan, Rachel and Brenda, who's done a fantastic job evolving our recruitment and onboarding process. Adam came in, he had individual sessions with HR and our recruitment team to instigate our plan and to learn from Adam. The main aim was to identify any barriers that might exist and make it inclusive for all potential applicants. So we used an iterative approach and we broke it down into various stages. We reviewed our job descriptions just to make sure that they were clear and concise. We added a very simple question to our application form and throughout the process. Do you require any special accommodations? And we asked that, again, as I said, at various points throughout the process, just to ensure that candidates have the chance to disclose anything if they feel comfortable with that, any diverse abilities or anything that they need. We also created an interview guide, and this was great work that the team have done. And this is really to ensure that candidates can familiarise themselves with the interviewees, the campus, the car park, the interview rooms, and even reception. We have held people manager events in partnership with AsIAM, Employment Response, and APP training services, just to increase that awareness. And we're building out a relationship or a partnership, sorry, with Ahead.ie. So I think we need to be specific, have really target the career opportunities, but be very mindful of retention, because we have to think about not only internships, but a long-term career, opportunity for neurodiverse minds, and put mechanisms in place to support employees, be it the internal policies, the recruitment, the mentoring, the internships, EAP or feedback loops, etc. And we're really, really looking forward, finally, one last point on that one, is we're really looking forward to the Communities in Practice, which is an excellent initiative led by Adam and team to help companies in this space. And we're really, really delighted and excited to be part of that.
Well done to you, Naomi. It's great. And I think it'll be an inspiration to lots of people on the call today who are employers and want to do it, but just don't know the right way and to do it very properly. And we've so many questions and so many comments. People are really loving the discussion. So well done to everyone there. I'm going to now put some of the questions to the panelists, but so everyone on the call and on this meeting today knows, you can download the full Autism in the Workplace report at www.IrishJobs.ie, and it's well worth reading that. And I know Maria is on the call as well, and she's helping me sift through some of these questions. But first of all, Adam, Rob Sheridan is just saying, Adam, we aim to endeavour to establish a framework for autistic people regarding transition supports from secondary school to third level into employment. He thinks, Rob says, the fundamental deficit at present is that there is no seamless transition model that exists. Are you happy to answer that, Rob? That seems, Adam, that seems a fair point.
I think it's a great question, because I think, unfortunately, at the moment, I think this is the first step in how we change the system. We need to get to a point where we presume that when somebody finishes education and they're on the autism spectrum, that they're going to progress to employment. There's still nearly an assumption within the health and education setting sometimes that a person will instead go into, be it a day service or be it into continuous training. But we need to be focused actually to how can we get that person into employment. Those of us who are autistic require a lot of support as we go through our education system. We then want to have the opportunity to participate in the economy and society as well. And we need to make sure that government creates pathways and businesses create pathways that we can do this. I think what is an important message is there's not one pathway that's going to get us there. It's really important that we realize work for some people will be about working full time and being able to live independently. For other people, it's about actually dignity. It's about participation in the community, and it's about creating opportunities, in some instances, for a person to work a very small number of hours each week. But I think in terms of creating those different pathways into where we need to get, I was excited looking down the attendance list today at the list of companies that have taken the time to be here today, some of the leading companies in the country, the leading public bodies. It's working together and collaborating we will fix this issue. I don't think anyone's going to come in and fix it for us, but I think that by coming together and building a momentum, that's how we'll create the range of options we need to end autism unemployment. Brilliant.
Thanks so much for that, Adam. And Naomi, because this is almost an employer suggestion, Darren Priest is saying, I'd love to see a solutions-focused approach used by my employers so that they're comfortable with not knowing and excited about finding out. I find that small companies, Darren says, when I get to speak to the decision maker, are easier to support than big companies with layers of decision-making and a culture that doesn't sit well with not knowing. What would you say to that, Naomi?
Sorry, you broke up just a little bit. Sorry, Miriam.
It's just a comment. Maybe companies should have a more solutions-focused approach. Maybe would that help?
Yeah, I think it would help, and I think it's something that we could maybe, look at creating through even the communities of practice and things like that. I think there's a lot that's going to come out of that, and I think that we can all learn together and create something that we can share and help all companies.
Great. Marie, if you're on the call there, have you got some more questions for me? My helper, my co-presenter.
Thank you, Miriam. Yeah, lots of great feedback on the Q&A, and lots of praise and warmth towards Melissa and Niamh's contributions in particular. I have a question that's come in, and I think it's a great one for Adam. What can we do as individuals to be allies to our autistic colleagues?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question, because, and I was delighted that Naomi mentioned this, because I think what is important when we talk about this issue is that colleagues are the key stakeholder. We so often do this. We talk about management, recruitment, policies. The people you spend the bulk of your day with are going to be your colleagues. And very often it's just that we create a stigma in workplaces and we create problems when we don't talk about things. So when there's people who need sensory breaks, for example, if there's a person who needs to communicate in a different way, as we've heard today, or needs certain accommodations, if we don't explain to people why they're important, that can be a big problem. Sometimes people shy away because of the disclosure issue. Maybe not everybody wants to know, but I think what's important is we shouldn't be talking about individuals. We should be talking about autism in the workplace as part of diversity inclusion, as we would gender, sexuality, culture, and lots of other areas. I think it is really important during World Autism Month that we all take small steps to be more inclusive in the workplace and in our own lives. And we're going to be sharing content throughout the month using the hashtag Autism Month Say Yes to show people the practical steps that they can take. And we have a guidebook to this effect in Super Value stores as well.
That's great.
Okay, and another question came in, and I think this is probably more to Orla. How do you change workplace culture so more autistic people are employed? I guess that's down to recruitment processes, Orla, isn't it?
Yes, Mary, and I think what will be very helpful for employers is the masterclasses that we'll be running from April onwards. So just looking at the content of the masterclasses from April to October, the one that's being run in June actually addresses workplace culture and attitudes to neurodiversity in the workplace. But also what's in that masterclass is an opportunity kind of to use promotional material, and kind of how do you communicate to your employees about neurodiversity in the workplace. So there's also a session as well in October about creating autism-friendly workplaces. So there's an awful lot of topics that are covered in the 7 masterclasses, but specifically June and October cover that topic. So just a reminder that you can register on the AsIAm website, and we'll be communicating about the masterclasses to our customer base on Irish Jobs as well, Mary.
Okay, great. Thanks, Orla. Miriam, there was a question for Niamh about working from home, as whether people, and I suppose it's timely for everybody at the moment, whether people with autism should be given the choice whether to work from home. And that was for Niamh, a question for Niamh.
Right, it is a really good question. And yes, I think people with autism should be given the choice whether they should work from home, because it is their life that they are deciding on. It is their future that they are planning. It is not our carers, it's not our social care workers' choices. It's the person with autism. It's their choice whether they should work from home or if they should go to commuting to work. And I think that it's a very important thing, especially given that we were in the pandemic last year and we're still in lockdown restrictions. There's going to be a little bit more difficult for people in general to actually look for work, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty with other non-essential retail shops being reopened, with any other construction work being reopened, etc. So I think that this remote working actually has been very beneficial. I know that it's been very beneficial to me because I'm not getting stressed out as much when I'm getting up in the mornings. I feel that I'm being more relaxed when I'm actually getting ready for work. Like beforehand, last year, when I was traveling to the GPO before the lockdown, I had often gotten up at 7 in the morning, made sure that I was fully dressed up and ready to get the bus from a 10-minute walk. And given that it was rush hour, there's a lot of high anxiety when commuting to work. And I feel that many people would actually be very agreeable to that situation, that there's a lot of high anxiety regarding commuting. And then like now with the remote working, I'm not really rushing as much. I feel that I don't really have to do anything else. I just need to get up, have something quick to eat, brush my teeth, get my hair brushed, get my remote working laptop on, and just sign in, and then I'm working away. So I feel that there's a real difference with remote working now.
Interesting.
Yeah. Miriam, do you have other questions that you can see there that you'd like to ask?
Yes, I do, Mary. This is probably for maybe Adam, Melissa, or Niamh. Feel free, all of you, to answer if you want. It's more about, what about people that are diagnosed as adults? Because I suppose for the moment, they say in Irish society, we always hear about children growing up. But what about when you're diagnosed as an adult? Adam, I might give that to you.
Yeah, I think this is really important. And one of the things we're advocating, and we will be covering during the masterclass series, is the importance of ensuring that autism is part of employee assistance programs. I think, you know, if you're somebody who's managed to secure employment, you might be very reluctant to then share. So it's important that throughout the journey of employment, there's multiple opportunities to share your diagnosis, and to access it. Private diagnosis for adults in Ireland is really the only route to get an adult diagnosis. It costs maybe €1,500 and no real state support follows. So if people are getting diagnosis, it's probably for work is a major reason. So if work could help with those costs, I think that would make a huge difference. But I think if I'm going to share something that's really personal, something that I'm only coming to terms with myself yet, something that I mightn't yet even feel positive about, it's really important I'm doing that in context, in terms of what supports will follow through. How is that information going to be managed? Will I still be treated the same? Will I still be as valued? So it's important companies create the opportunity to have those conversations, but they provide the context as well.
Very interesting, Adam. And I might give this to Niamh, or if you'd like to. It's just somebody is saying, it's very important, obviously, if you want to open it up and tell your employer, but is it important that employees are also told in the company? What do you think about that, Niamh?
Well, given when I first started working with Plus last year, I had disclosed to a colleague that I have autism, and I feel that it is important that other employees are aware that there are other colleagues that might have autism as well, because I think that if you don't disclose your disability, like, you don't know how other employees or employers are going to treat you if you're not disclosing that information. But if you feel like you need to disclose your disability to somebody, whether it is an employer, whether it is someone in HR, or even if it's just a colleague that you're going through training with, I think that it would make a more difference for people to understand that, okay, there is somebody that might not understand fully what's going on with this task. So we'll try and slow this down, make sure that some questions about this can be asked from the person, and then we can try and answer it. But then also at the same time, it could be more huddle meetings. Like, I have regular huddle meetings with my colleagues every morning, and I feel that I am very much a part of the team, because when it's my turn to speak, I am mentioning whether I'm actually enjoying the work, whether I'm going to be liaising with somebody over something, or even it's just a little banter that we have. Like, we were kind of nearly talking about like what we were planning for Easter and how we're going to be planning what we're doing for the weekend. So it's great to actually have that kind of social interaction with your colleagues, even if you are somebody with autism. Because I don't know if other people on the panel can agree with me on this one, but I think that the more that people understand the impacts that working remotely or even going to work on its own has on a person with autism, I feel that many employers, many employees will actually benefit from having a person with autism. And I think that there is going to be an increasing amount of people with disabilities coming into work. There is going to be an increasing amount of people working from home. It could also mean that there's an increasing amount of people with disabilities remotely working as well. And I think that it would mean the world to many people or even adults with autism if they are given a morning routine that they can feel that they have a purpose in waking up to.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm going to bring Melissa and then Orla in on that. Melissa, the point about, is it okay, obviously, if people want to open up to their employers, to say that they're autistic, to give personal information, what about employees? That's what one of our questioners is saying. I mean, are they entitled to know, or is it none of their business, really?
I think at the end of the day, it's down to the individual and what they think. Yeah. Like, I know personally, up until maybe a few years ago, I would have been hesitant to disclose even at recruitment stage. Because of negative biases, of course, I would have been afraid that it would lead to employers not wanting to hire me. But on the other hand, I was afraid of positive biases too, as employers are starting to move more towards including autism under their D&I strategies. I also had this fear that I wanted to be hired on merit, and I didn't want to be hired for the stats. And I also had, I suppose, that niggling sense of imposter syndrome too, which was just something I just had to get over. And I don't really, like, for example, with reference to my employer, I certainly knew right off that neither of those biases were going to be at play. But I suppose it's more kind of a logistic issue when I actually got in, like, do I need to have this conversation individually with each person that I work with? Like, for example, if I want to, I suppose, ask for consent to record a meeting, for example, not everyone is necessarily comfortable with being recorded. So it's like, do I need to disclose to each individual person I have a meeting with, hi, I'm autistic, can I record this meeting because I struggle to write and listen at the same time? Or do I just say, for accessibility purposes, keep it vague? Or do I just say nothing, like, we want to record this meeting, is this okay with you? So it's more like, I'm not ashamed of my autism. I'm happy to say it to everyone and anyone, but it's kind of just more awkward having to say it to each individual person. But personally, yeah, like, I don't mind disclosing to everyone and anyone, but I can also see where people are coming from when they're hesitant to disclose. At the end of the day, it's completely down to the individual's comfort levels, I think.
Interesting. Orla, and obviously because you're so key to this key partnership, and I love the fact it's about autistic talent, and it's about companies being lucky enough to hire autistic talent as opposed to some kind of a social responsibility. But when you hire people, Orla, or when companies are to hire people, what is their direction? And there may be people on this today thinking, yeah, I want to hire, autistic talent. I really do. I need them for my company. But do they then have to disclose that to other people who'll be working with this very autistically talented person or not? How does that work?
I think it probably starts at the very beginning. You have to, I suppose, you have to assess whether the company currently has autistic friendly policies in place. And if they do, are the rest of the employees in the organization aware of that fact? And as I mentioned earlier, in the master classes that Adam will be running, there'll be industry experts talking on those master classes, and there'll be advice for employers on how to promote neurodiversity in the workplace. So I think it does start at the very beginning. And I think if I talk for Irish Jobs ourselves, I think we'd be very open to our staff and very transparent. But I think going back to the earlier point, I think you have to check in with the individual to understand how comfortable actually they will be with communicating to other people in the organisation.
Brilliant. And Adam, we're coming towards the end. Orla mentioned there the masterclasses you'll be running. Would you give us a little idea, just, I mean, in a minute, Adam, I mean, what you'll be doing in those masterclasses for employers listening today?
Absolutely. So those master classes will give us the space. I think what people will have got a sense from this discussion is it's a big area. People have lots of questions. So what we want to do is break this down into baby steps, look at different aspects of recruitment and employment, and give people the space to hear from people who've done it already. I think that's really important for people. People can always be afraid, if this hasn't been done before, what if I get it wrong? So what we're going to do at every master class, we're going to hear from a subject matter expert, but critically also from an employer and from an employee. So we're going to have those three perspectives moving all of the time. Our first one is on the 20th of April, and we'll be starting at the beginning. So we'll be looking at interviews and recruitments. They're always going to be at 12 noon, and people will be able to register on our website. What we're hoping to do from these masterclasses is build out a broader suite of materials to really help employers begin on the journey towards inclusive employment.
Which is wonderful. And it's so far today, like we've had 95 questions asked, which is great. Many have been answered directly. They all will be answered as well later on. And for anyone who wants to know, the hashtag for this event, I love it, is hashtag Autistic Talent. Orla, what would you say to companies listening now, employers, as an encouragement to say, this is really a key moment? I know for companies and people like Adam and AsIAm, this is very important. This is like a key moment for autistic people in this country. What would you finally say, Orla, maybe to companies and employers to encourage them to go ahead and recruit autistic talent?
I would say that there's no downside. I think I finished the earlier conversation, Miriam, by saying that out of the organizations that we surveyed that do hire autistic talent, 100% said that they made a very positive contribution to their organization. So, as I said, I don't see any downside, and I would say get on board.
Brilliant. And Naomi, as a company that's known for, you know, being wonderful in this area, being proactive, tell them why it's a real positive to recruit autistic talent. Tell other companies and employers today.
Well, you've actually heard from Melissa and Niamh earlier. It's about that loyalty, the attention to detail, and it's about really making sure that everyone has a purpose. And going back to the earlier point, Miriam, it's important that the disclosure is comfortable for the individual. But when the individual is comfortable, us as employers, we get to tap into that talent because they're comfortable with what they're comfortable with their environment, they're comfortable with their work, etc. And then that really empowers them. And then you really get the best out of the employees and you're tapping into the great talent that we have. But then they're also comfortable with what they're actually adding, and they have a purpose, and everybody needs a purpose. Right. Yeah. So, yeah. And one thing that my dad said to me years ago, he said, Naomi, always remember that everyone is somebody's baby. All right. So what he was really saying there was, you know, everybody needs a chance. Everybody needs a purpose. Everybody needs to feel included. And that's why inclusion and diversity and this whole program is very important.
Naomi, no wonder you turned out so well with your dad being that wise. I love him. I'm going to give one last word to Adam, but I want to thank Adam Harris, Orla Moran, Melissa Mooney, and Niamh Biddulph in particular, and Naomi. Adam, last word, how important is this initiative?
I hope today can be a turning point in this conversation. I want to say a huge thanks to you, Miriam, for facilitating it so wonderfully and giving up your time. We really appreciate that. And for everyone, all our panelists here today and our partners in Irish Jobs. I'm conscious people might want to strike while the iron is hot. It's Autism Month. Hopefully people are going away with lots of ideas today. So we'd love people to join the conversation using the hashtag Autistic Talent. To register for our webinar on the AsIAm website, and we'll be announcing further details in the coming days. But also we provide a broader suite of training and information services to business as well. So if you want to learn more after today, if there's questions you still have, you can get in touch with us on info@AsIAM.ie, and of course check out the report on IrishJobs.ie as well.
Well, congrats to all of you. Great partnership. It's been my privilege and honor. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll call it a day. Slán.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam.